mows 5 acres of grass. So he's proved that people do like to see this stuff. I get all these really great birds and things like that. But for people who like acres and acres of mowed grass, they would look at my yard and say, lady, you got to cut all this stuff down. You got to make it grass. You got to make it all the same, you know. He mows, no matter if it rains or not, he's mowing once a week. Maybe he likes his little lawnmower, I'm not sure. But we have to kind of get away from that because grass really doesn't help anything in the natural world. Grass takes up so much of the turf that's below it as far as the ground, the resources. People, where I live, we have well water, and I have another neighbor who has been watering every day because we've missed all this rain. And his grass is nice and green. Everybody around him is all brown because they haven't been watering. But I don't have a lot of grass. I have trails that I mow, but my grass is all green because it's clover and it's things like that. But I've got probably 40 species of butterflies just in part of my yard. So I'm not saying that mine is the way to go, but I'm saying if you like nature, think differently about the way you might be managing your property or managing your yard. And you don't need a big property. You could be doing a lot of these things on a small property. Okay, another way that we fragment habitat is to come in and clear for interstates, power lines, pipelines, fracking pads. If you're not familiar with those things, a fracking pad can be a block of 20 to 40 acres that is totally cleared of trees in the middle of many acres. Well, what does that do? It does a lot of things, and we'll talk about that. Power line cuts. They come in, they have to, run those lines, and that's fine. We understand that. I mean, we've got to have power. That's the way it is. Same thing with pipelines. They'll come in, they'll put in the pipelines, but they'll open an area the size of this room to put in an 18 or 24-inch pipeline. No trees can grow over it because they don't want the roots going down and growing into the line. They have to maintain it in some way. So they're constantly spraying the right-of-ways with Roundup. Okay? Well, if you don't know what Roundup is doing, you need to educate yourself about how bad it can be. If you still have your yard sprayed by a guy that comes in with boots and gloves and a mask and a rubber suit and puts that little note on your yard that says in 2 hours you can walk on this, don't do it. And don't let your pets do it, and don't let your grandkids do it. Because they come in and they lick their feet. Well, hopefully the grandkids aren't licking their feet, but the pets do. And then they wonder why in several years their dog or their cat has cancer. Okay? The chemicals in that, if it's killing everything, every plant that you put it on, think about all the insects it's killing, think about all the animals, think about the food chain. So you have a grasshopper that gets sprayed with this. He dies, the mouse tries to eat it, then you have an owl trying to eat that mouse. It's going all the way through the system. And if you're not familiar with the way that the bald eagles, that whole thing with all the chemicals and the DDT back in the day, made the eggshells very, very brittle, so when they went to sit on the eggs, they were breaking the eggs and we weren't regenerating our population. So, when you think about these corridors that are made, what can we do differently? So, not only do we break up the contiguous forest blocks that are vital to the nesting, the feeding, the corridor movement, the survival of our species, let's do some different things. Let's come in and plant those right-of-ways with native plants. It's amazing the insects, the butterflies, the moths, and all kinds of things that you will get in corridors like this. Because otherwise, you've got a corridor that's got grass, and nothing really is going to go to grass. The other way you have it is you have a corridor that once a year, or sometimes twice a year, is totally sprayed with Roundup. And then it's brown, and nothing is growing, and nothing lives around there, but unfortunately when they spray, there's always collateral damage. Other things get sprayed in the process. So, you can try to do this, and a lot of communities have done that. You may have noticed it along the interstates. And that started with Lady Bird Johnson back in the day in Texas. They did a lot of it there. It took off. We have a lot of our interstates. So in the center part of the interstates where you find, some plants growing, that was all an initiative to make that a more, you don't have to mow as much, you're not using fuel, you're not paying your, the people that work for your service department to come out and continually mow that grass. It can be a win-win situation. That way, when you have these corridors, then you can also consider doing a way station for monarchs. Flood it full of milkweed seeds. Fabulous. Have a place for them to come when they're migrating. Because when they're coming from Canada and they're going to Mexico, if they don't have places to stop every night, because they don't migrate at night, they have to stop and hang in the trees, they're not going to make it to Mexico. So they need places to nectar along the way. And so late species like goldenrod and the asters that are now starting to bloom now are critical for migrating monarchs. There are 2 monarchs here. They're mating. So yes, they lay their eggs on the milkweed, but remember the milkweed is no longer in flower when they are migrating. They need things like I said, the goldenrod, the asters, the Joe Pye weed, those plants that bloom late. And then you have little creatures like the red fox using these little runways that are here, because then this brings in small mammals. And small mammals are favored by foxes or owls or things like that. So again, think the food chain as they're going down, and you're providing food for them. God bless you. Another one. Oh, wait, I have to go back. Sorry. That's scarlet tanager at the top there. That's a bird. It's a beautiful red bird. That's a male. Scarlet tanagers, for example, need a contiguous forest. Not a forest that's fragmented and broken up, but it needs a contiguous forest of anywhere from 200 acres and more in order to nest. Okay? What makes it difficult for them is when they have 50 acres over here, and then there's a road, or there's a power line cut or something, and then there's another 50 acres over here, and they're not connected. They are not nesters. They can just put their nest anywhere. They choose not to for obvious reasons for them, and they won't do that. So the more we fragment, the more we take away nesting habitat for that particular bird. It's a gorgeous bird. Black wings, just beautiful. Okay. Logging. Logging in general, but especially clear cuts. You're exposing the previously located interior trees. So you've got the trees that are in the middle of the forest, and then you come in and you say cut a power line cut through it. Well, those trees that were in the middle now are on the edge. And when they're on the edge, they're more susceptible to wind damage, so that when this kind of thing happens, they break apart, then the insects come in. They lay their eggs in the trees, they damage the trees, things like that. Also, cuts and scars along the trees that are along the area of destruction. Again, opens those up to diseases. And we know now that we've got so many different boring beetles and things like that that have come into our area from various sources that are not native, usually from China or Japan, that are killing these trees. Well, this is how they get in, okay? They get in on these openings, and then they have a clear field because the bark is like our skin. It's made to keep things out. But when we have a cut or things like that, that's when we can get bacteria. Same thing with trees. It works the same way. When we do land clearing, it's very easy for that dozer that was working there up on Whiskey Island, which was loaded with invasives, to get put on a trailer, taken to another place, and start clearing land there. All of that mud and everything on those treads comes off at the next place, and it starts the process all over again. So all the Phragmites, or many of the other things that are there, then move to a new area. They're very well adapted to out-competing our native plants, and they take over, which is what you see here. This is an area south of Akron that was 200 acres of wonderful wetland with shorebirds and things like that. They came in and they did some work, and there was some salt that was spilled, and they brought in heavy equipment to move some things around, and within 20 years, maybe less, totally filled with Phragmites. And if you're not familiar with Phragmites can grow 2 feet in a day. Okay? It's not like you're going to get your shovel out there and dig it up and throw it in a compost pile. It's not going to work. It's going to spread, and it's going to see anything else growing in there, And think about Phragmites being, 6 to 8 feet tall, depending where it is, so you can't really even see through it. These are about 6 trees that made it. They're back here, out of all that, 200 and some acres. So again, it's another species that keeps other things from growing, especially the natives. So, and then the timing of our tree cutting. So, say they're going to come in and they're going to make a new business park. Well, one of the things that we had was the Indiana bat. And if an Indiana bat had been spotted in the area, that was something that could halt construction during the time that the bat would be there. But when the bat leaves or goes